What is up, fam? Thank you so much for tuning in to So Real Sports Talk. We have a lot to talk about. My name is So Real Sunil. To the side of me, we have the Press Democrats' own Jack Hammer. Jack, I don't even want to know how you're feeling right now because, to be honest, I just want to get into talking about the game. So, obviously, week 3, tough loss, last second field goal for the 49ers to lose it. Clearly, you were at the game. Tell me what your overall reaction was from seeing, everything that's going on.
I think the 49ers are a very good team that is struggling on offense for whatever reason to start games. The defense, while they played decent, deserves more blame than people are giving them.
Interesting. Okay. Well, let's get into some specifics because let's talk about it. So you said the defense is getting too much blame. So who is to blame, Jack? Look, this is a game where the Green Bay Packers were down to their third string left tackle. This was a game where one of their top cornerbacks was out last minute. This is a team that struggled out the gates, and nobody really knew what they were necessarily made of. But on paper, it looked like this is a game that the 49ers should have dominated. So who is to blame for the 49ers actually ending up losing this game?
I don't think that there's any. I don't think we can say that there's one group. I think the offense shares some of the blame. The defense shares some of the blame. But I don't think you can go and you can say that there's one particular player or one particular side of the ball. The defense. Let's start on the defensive side. The defense. It's not like the defense came out and played good. The first possession of the game, they give up a 40-plus yard touch. They throw to from Rodgers that sets them up. They're at one point they're down inside the 20-yard line, and the only thing that bailed them out there was a face mask call and a couple nice plays by Nick Bosa. And after that, Nick Bosa was shut out. You really didn't see him the rest of the game after that first series. I mean, he might have made one sack, I think. No, he didn't even make a sack, but he was pretty much a non-factor after that first series. And I understand the thought that they played well up until the finish of the game because, at points, because they had stopped, they had the one stop inside the red zone after the Garoppolo interception. They hold to the field goal after the backwards pass. And but throughout, they gave up 340 plus yards in the air to Aaron Rodgers. I know the stats only say 200 and I think it was 263, 261, somewhere right in that ballpark. But they also gave up 81 yards and pass interference penalties as well, and that's yardage that the defense gave up through the air. So I don't think you can say that that's just one side. That the defense played. I don't even think you can say the defense really played a good game. We've seen this coming through the first 2 weeks of the season. What we saw last night, they let Detroit go up and down the field on them. They let Philadelphia go up and down the field on them. The only difference was on last night. You had a quarterback on the other side of the ball that made him pay by putting it in the end zone,
and a receiver too, right? So, Look, once again the rushing defense was not good. There was large chunks. I remember at the beginning of the game, you were kind of tweeting about, it seemed like Green Bay was getting 3 to 5 yards or 4 to 5 yards every single carry. And that was straight out the gate, just like usual. Very disappointing by the defense, I think, overall. Jack, the biggest thing I'm seeing on defense is there's not, the cliche saying, what is your identity? What is this defense's identity? Is this going to be a press man team or is this going to be a cover zone team? Because it looks like the defense is confused, right? Because when they do go into a zone, it's mental errors that are being done by a Lenoir, who unfortunately didn't have a good game in this game. He let a touchdown go in the back of the end zone because he was too shallow in the zone. We saw that happen at on the last second drive that that Aaron Rodgers did. Fred Warner missed, missed his kind of assignment as far as being too shallow, letting Devontae Adams get behind him, and that led to obviously, the demise of the 49ers. I don't know what, I think the safe thing to say, I think going into the season, everybody was looking at this defense to be a top 5 defense. It's not looking like, I think if the safe money is this team isn't going to finish in the top 5 in defense. There's way too many holes. It seems like the players that are supposed to be superstars are not playing like superstars right now. And we're going to get into, more of the details right there. But there's a lot of blame to go around. This isn't a blameless game. I think the coaching staff has a lot of questions to answer. Jimmy G has a lot of questions to answer. This running game and offensive line have questions to answer. And the defensive line has questions to answer. There wasn't really any side of the ball that you could point to and was like, they're doing their job consistently. And the biggest issue that I'm really seeing is that we still haven't seen the 49ers put together 4 quarters of solid football in all aspects of the game. We've seen a quarter here, a couple quarters here, but as far as start to finish, a full game of 4 quarters hasn't been seen. And once we start going up against these better teams, they're going to take advantage of it. And we just saw with the first playoff caliber team that we played up against. They're not better than us, I would say on paper, but they played better just because we're not playing up to our potential.
Yeah, and I would really say that I think the 49ers are a good team, obviously. I mean, they just went up against a team that was in the NFC Championship game the last 2 years, fell down by 17 points, came back to take a lead at the end of the game, and then lost on a field goal. So I think they're a good team, but they're not a top 5 defense anywhere close to it. They might show up, finish off in the top 10 maybe if you look at the points that they're allowing, but they're going to be in the middle of the road defense all season long with the amount of yards they give up. They can't stop the run up the middle. When they play their 2 safeties deep, and the opposing offense runs the ball out of the shotgun formation, it's 5 yards every time. Yeah. The only time that they stop that is when they bring a safety down into the box, or the offense goes usually from under center. They seem to do a little bit better in those situations.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get into some of the details right now, but it was a pretty frustrating game. I don't know if it was. I mean, I'm assuming it was just as frustrating watching it live in the stadium as it was, from at home for us, because I'm just like, what is going on? Like we're seeing flashes. Why not keep going back to these flashes? So, but let's
stay with the blame though, because we just talked about the defense. We haven't talked about the offensive side, because the offense definitely deserves blame. So, I know I started off on the defensive side, but the offense deserves it too. This game was almost, you can't say it was a carbon copy of the Philadelphia game in the first half, because they did get a first down on the first possession of the game.
Yeah, finally.
But it was extremely close. The first three series of the game, the 49ers they get a first down. They ran the same number of plays. Let's put it that way. Against Philadelphia, they went 3 and out, so it was 9 plays in the first 3 series. On last night, it was 9 plays again. They got a first down, a couple more other plays, and then they had a 3 and out and an interception on the first play of the next possession. It was exactly the same number of plays. Then they come out and they have a nice drive, just barely get past midfield on their first possession. After that, in the second quarter, don't pick up the first down. They try to go quick on 3rd and 1, and they just get stuffed on it. And last week they quarterback sneaked the ball down the field at times on Philadelphia. They ended up with a 4th and about a yard last night, and they punt it. Makes no sense.
Sense. Especially with the down and distance and where they were. Like, there was really no benefit really to punt at that point, as far as compared to what the momentum would be if they got that first down.
Sure. And then they benefit. They get a break at the end of the half when
that should have been Downing.
Well, no,
Oh, no.
they get a break at the end of the half when Trenton Cannon returns that kickoff all the way out to the 36-yard line or whatever it was.
Uh-huh.
That's a or 32-yard line, somewhere in that ballpark. That saves them, because that allows them to put some points on the board right at the end of the first half. But even that wasn't easy. They get right down to the 1-yard line, and I think they ran 5 plays inside the 2-yard line.
Right.
I think one of them was a pass interference. So that's where, when you get to the end of the game and people start to complain about scoring too early, did you see how hard it was for this team to score from the 1
Right.
earlier in the game? There's no guarantee that they were going to get a touchdown, even if they let the time run out.
For sure. For sure. Let me get some of these comments in. So JR Meadows, Shanny is holding us back. A lot of people that are coming at Kyle Shanahan's throat. We're gonna get into that. Chico TR, I blame the coaching staff, especially the defense. D'Amico Ryan's getting some shots. Harold Murillo, defense gets the blame. How could the 49ers let Devontae Adams so wide open? That is a big question.
And he deserves, and Ryans does deserve to get some blame on this, and really have some serious questions. People want to go after Kyle Shanahan on this one. That's what I keep seeing on Twitter. And when you watch this game, Nick Bosa's getting the heck chipped out of him. They never adjusted to it. They just kept doing the same stuff over and over. There was a couple of times where they moved him to the other side, or they did some different things on defense. But for the most part, they just chipped the heck out of him, and that's part of what took him out of the game. I mean, how do you not have an adjustment to get your best pass rusher going when all it takes is the other team to just sit there and chip him off the edge over and over and over again? They hit the quarterback 2 times on 34 dropbacks last night.
Yeah.
Playing against a third-team left tackle. Sorry.
Yeah, that's what makes it even worse, right? It adds insult to injury. Mistakes were made on all phases. Pinor says, just because Jimmy finished that last drive doesn't mean the whole body of work wasn't trash. That is a valid point. Waruna, when will Jimmy bail out the rest of the team when they have an off day? It's too much to ask for $27 million quarterback. Let's pretend Green Bay is only a good team when we are playing this year. That is very valid point, but let's move on, because I know we talked a lot about these, and we're going to specifically talk about each one of these groupings. So Let's start off with the defensive line. Jack, when we were going into the offseason, this was the one thing that we had no question marks about. We felt this was going to be a top 5 defensive line, that we brought back all of these guys from training camp. Bosa was healthy. D Ford was going to be able to play limited time. Ebicom was going to eat. Armstead, the list goes on and on. Kinlaw. And now we're 3 games in, and we're still waiting for that dominant defensive line performance from start to finish. Jack, I just saw the Cleveland Browns have 9 sacks against the mobile quarterback in Justin Fields. I just saw Aaron Donald against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the reigning Super Bowl champions, go out and make play after play after play when push came to shove and they needed to stop. Their best player came out and made a play. I am not seeing that whatsoever with this defense. As far as we saw it against Detroit. We saw it against the Eagles, I guess, when push came to shove. But I'm saying, as far as like in this game last night, I did not see anybody step up and make that play when we needed that play, especially out of this defensive line. They weren't getting the type of pressure we needed. They weren't stopping the run like we needed. So my question to you is, do we really have an elite defensive line?
I don't think so. I think the reason that so many people thought it was going to be elite was they were going up against the 49ers offensive line in training camp. Made them look better than they are. Mm-hmm. The interior of the 49ers defensive line is not anywhere close to an elite level. They do okay on the pass rush with Eric Armstead in the middle, but that's not enough. The other guy needs to be able to do some work too, and they're not getting it from the third guy. And like we said earlier, the run defense, they can't stop the run to save their. They can't stop the run in normal first down situations. It's constantly goes from 1st and 10 to 2nd and 4 or 2nd and 5 or 2nd and 4. And unless they can fix that, it's going to be a lot of problems when they play against these good quarterbacks like they're playing against on Sunday against Russell Wilson, and some of the other ones they're going to play down the road.
What are you seeing though? I mean, it seems like just based off of talent, these guys should be overwhelming offensive line like the Green Bay Packers, which is missing their left tackles, had to replace their center. Their all-pro center is playing with the Chargers right now. They lost, all-pro guards that are at the Chargers as well. Like, what is going on with this defensive line that in a game where they should just dominate, it seemed like Aaron Rodgers was clean the whole game.
Yeah, there's two things. I mean, let's go with the easy one first. Aaron Rodgers got the ball out of his hand extremely quick, so that's one. That kind of goes against that. That puts that on the defensive backside a little bit. Mm-hmm. But the other one is I talked about already. If you can take Nick Bosa out of the game just by chipping him, the 49ers are dead. If it's that easy for Green Bay to do that and take him out of the game, every team in the NFL should do that every week, because it's not like they were doing anything that was taking him out of their offense to take him out of the game. And that the chipping was a huge part of it, because what that's doing is that's forcing him to go, that's helping that left tackle out, right? That left tackle that's not really, you saw him struggle the first couple of times that he had to go one-on-one. Well, they start chipping right away, and instead of him having to worry about Bosa running around his edge, now he knows that Bosa is going to be forced to come either right at him or to his inside. It allows him to set up a little bit better and play the game much, much easier. So as far as last night's game goes, that shut down the majority of the 49ers pass rush.
So if they're putting two on Bosa, is he the only guy that we have that has talent on this defensive line? Where's Street? Where's DJ Jones? Where's Eric Armstead? Where's D Ford? Where's Samson Ebukam? Is it that it's either Bosa eats or this defensive line doesn't work? I thought that we had the deepest defensive line in the league.
I like Nick Bosa. I think Bosa is the best defensive player on the team.
Absolutely.
And then Eric Armstead does a good job too. D Ford last night only played 20 snaps, and that's just the way that it's going to be with him. They're not as deep as they were better in 2019 because of Ronald Blair. Ronald Blair, when he'd come into the game, there wasn't a drop off really from Nick Bosa to Ronald Blair. Now they have Arden Key. When they go into their second defensive line rotation, it's bad. They get blown off the ball. Zach Kerr is not good in the middle of this defensive line. Kentavius Street is probably their second best interior pass rusher, but he struggles against the run. So when he's on the field in 1st and 10 and situations, stuff like that, he gets beat. This defense misses DeForest Buckner. That's plain and simple. You can debate it as much as you want about if he was overpaid or not, but he's not getting paid a whole lot more than what Eric Armstead's getting paid. And it would have been much better off keeping him than some of the other things that they did. And they could have made it work they could have kept everybody they did, and it was about $3 million difference. So that's it's just really wild that they decided to do that. And then Javon Kinlaw's not a good football player when it comes to defensive linemen. He's just not. He gets pushed around all over the field. People think he's a good defensive guy because he's a big guy. He's a run stuffer. They ran the ball right at him last night and ran the ball around him. He's okay when the 49ers get into if they decide to go with an odd front and he lines up over the center. But when they're playing their wide nine, he just gets pushed around.
Yeah, it looks like we have some fool's gold with the 49ers defensive line, because, Jack, maybe 3-4 weeks ago, you weren't sounding this way on the defensive line, right? So obviously seeing them in real live action is very big disappointment, right?
Yeah, well, they need to make adjustments every once in a while in this game. I just didn't see anything. I didn't see any adjustments in what I saw last night. What I saw last night from them was what we have seen. This is what I said after the game, before I left the stadium, was what we saw last night from the 49ers defense is what we've seen all year long. The only difference was they were playing against a good quarterback.
And unfortunately, it's not enough to win. Let's flip to the offensive side, right? So this offense has been pedestrian over the last however many quarters. There's a stat that was floating around, and Grant put it out, Jesse put it out, about how many points had been scored over the last 8 quarters. Once again, the offense couldn't get started till 4 minutes left in the second quarter. It seems like they're only scoring in 2-minute drills and things like that. Is this offense good enough to compete with these better teams with Jimmy as the quarterback?
I'll go. We're probably gonna go into a bunch of different ways with this, but I'm gonna start off by saying, obviously, they're good enough to compete with Garoppolo's quarterback. They had to lead with 37 seconds to go last night, right?
Mm-hmm.
They were in the game. I understand that they struggled early on, but they were up 28-27 with 37 seconds to go with Garoppolo as the quarterback. The issue with the 49ers on offense goes beyond Garoppolo, though. The offensive line is overrated. I said that last week. I told you that last week on our show after the Philadelphia win, that he was getting way too much pressure, and he was bailing them out with his movement, and that's just the fact. There's no excuse for the 49ers offensive line to give up 11 quarterback hits to a defense that's missing their best pass rusher, opposite of what the 49ers were dealing with, and they still were able to get after the quarterback.
Right.
The other problem that the 49ers have is their running game has been terrible. If you go back and you look at the numbers since the touchdown run by Elijah Mitchell, the first six carries of the season, the 49ers ran the ball 6 times for 65 yards. This last one, that 38, was the 38-yard touchdown run by Mitchell. Since that point, the 49ers are averaging 3.07 yards per carry. That's the worst in the NFL. They're not moving the ball, and it's not because of. It's partly to do with the running backs, and it's also partly to do with the fact that this offensive line is getting pushed around. Go and check out my Twitter and watch the third play of the game from last night. It's a toss sweep to Trey Sermon. It gets stuffed for a loss of 3. Alex Mack gets blown back 4 yards of the line at the snap he just gets blown up by the nose tackle, and they chase him down, and that's part of the reason why the play gets blown up. And then you watch, Daniel Brunskill. Daniel Brunskill he's not getting any push anywhere. These guys, they are very limited with what they can do in the run game. If it's not for Garoppolo throwing the ball 40 times last night, this game is not 28-27 with 37 seconds to go. I understand that Garoppolo is a flawed quarterback, but this offense is not good right now when they can't run the ball and your offensive line can't block consistently.
So here's my thing, because there's a big debate right now is if Trey was the starter, would this game have been any different? And I don't know. But what I do know is with Jimmy Garoppolo, there's a small margin of error that the 49ers have as far as winning with Jimmy Garoppolo, because there's only so much he could do as far as to score points with this offense, right? And yeah, at the end of the game, did we have a chance to win? Absolutely. But the 49ers defense has to play damn near perfect to be able to make up for some of the flaws of this offense. Look, if we want to be very real, Jack, that touchdown that we scored at the end of the second half shouldn't have been a touchdown. That was intentional grounding by Jimmy, and they got bailed out by a call, and they were able to get another play, and that ended up being a touchdown with Trey Lance coming in and rushing for that touchdown. But if we didn't get that call, there's 0 points scored in the first half. How much pressure is it that this defense has to go out against a future Hall of Famer and has to constantly be able to stop them play after play after play to keep a team in the game? That's a lot of pressure. So clearly, when there's 37 seconds left and the whole game you've been able to keep your team at least somewhat competitive, to just blame it and be like, yo, Jimmy put us in a position to win. No, he didn't. This was a very stressful game for this defense. They're having to go on the field and protect 30-yard fields and 40-yard fields, and that's a lot. And then all of a sudden to be like, okay, now it's on you. You have to finish this game off because, you've been working so hard to at least keep us in this game. We finally did something good. So this is on the defense. I don't believe that. Jimmy should make the defensive job a lot easier with the talent that he has, with what's going on. And I don't think he's playing good enough. I think we keep bailing him out because this what the scoreboard says, but I don't think it's because of necessarily what Jimmy's doing. And I think that I don't know for a fact, but I'd like to see, because I've seen Jimmy. I know what that window of opportunity is with Jimmy and what the margin of error is with Jimmy. I just want to see what it is with Lance. I want to see if this guy could just scramble instead of have to wait there and get a sack or throw the ball out of bounds. If this guy could just scramble and pick up 4 yards with his legs and see what a 3rd and 4 does versus a 3rd and 9. Like, what does that do for the team? What does it do for the team if now the defenses have something else to think about as far as the legs? And how does that make the whole team better? Because I think it's a lot to ask from this defense to constantly keep a team to 10 points, 13 points, 14 points till the offense gets on track. That's not a winning way of football for the long term. It's definitely not going to work against better teams and playoff teams. And what are we trying to accomplish here? We're trying to get into the playoffs and compete for a Super Bowl, I thought. Maybe we're not at this point. Maybe it's just about saving Kyle Shanahan's job, because that's kind of what it's looking like right now. I know I went off on a rant and there was a lot in there, Jack, but what are your thoughts about that?
I don't know. I mean, what I would say is the 49ers defense gave up 223 yards in the first half. It was 17-0. How good of a job are they doing?
Well, I'm saying it's 17-0.
Okay, I understand that, but it's not like the defense was bailing anybody out.
But
the defense gave. I understand that. I understand the off.
If you're going 3 and out, there's no like 3 and out and getting punted. You're starting. I don't know, man. It's just like I think you give Jimmy too much credit, bro. That's what. Go ahead.
I hear you. I don't think it's just. That's fine. You can think I give Garoppolo too much too much credit, whatever you want to say. The 49ers aren't running the ball. The 49ers aren't blocking anybody. It doesn't matter, I don't think, if Trey Lance is playing quarterback, because Trey Lance couldn't even hit the ball during complete passes during circle drill last night. He overthrew balls after ball after ball during warmups. I was standing there watching him, and that's what he does. But, he gets in the game and he runs the ball for a touchdown, which is a nice play. It was a great block by Trent Williams for the touchdown. And what I'm saying is, I'm not saying that it's Garoppolo. I'm saying that even the 28 points is Garoppolo. I'm saying the entire offense is struggling. It's Garoppolo, it's the offensive lineman, and it's the running game. It's all of it. They don't have the run. Once they lost Raheem Mostert, they don't have any explosiveness from the running backs, and a lot of that is because they're really, and especially after they lost JaMycal Hasty, they don't have the ability to push people around like they did in 2019. They just don't do it. The center's old. He's getting blown all over the field. He's making the right calls. That's the benefit he's bringing, but that's a problem. And they don't have any kind of, I don't know how to explain it. I know that part of what you're saying is correct in the fact that they aren't able to take the deep shots, or they're not hitting the deep shots because, he had Garoppolo last night had Kittle deep over the middle down the field. He doesn't have the arm to stick the ball to stick that ball on him, so it's going to have to go in the air. And the defensive back makes a really nice play and comes across and intercepts him. That's not something we haven't seen before, just with the way that the scheme's drawn up. But part of it is because he's not able to stick it on enough of a line like what you might get from Trey Lance on that ball. I just think that if you put Trey Lance in the game last night, I think you probably score 28 points. You might score more. I don't really see it. I think the offense is dealing with more problems than just the quarterback, but the quarterback's the easy one to throw at because that's what people do.
You are the voice of reason, Jack. I like how you stay level-headed, and I'm a fan more than an analyst. But I just the only thing that I see is that we know what the margin of error with Jimmy is. Can he win? Is he good enough for us to win games? Yes. But things have to go almost perfect. The defense has to play super lights out. They can't give up 17 points, or they can they gave up 17 points in the beginning of the game. But in that second half, with all the mistakes Jimmy was making, they also kept the game close enough to where Jimmy could look like the hero and come back on a drive and all that kind of stuff. So we could say that, hey, who are they stopping? Jack, they were doing some amazing things, stopping short yardage or short fields with the quarterback I'm just blanking out on Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers. So it's not just like one or the other. I think that they're playing as well as they can given circumstances. And I don't think the defense is playing that well either, but I'm saying comparatively, like they're at least giving the offense a chance. the offense not necessarily doing anything till 2 minutes left in every single half seems to be more of an issue to me than what the defense is doing. And that's just what I'm seeing.
And that's how I started off my answer on this when we got to the offensive side, is that the offense on Sunday was for a quarter and almost, all but about 3 minutes of the game was not very good. I mean, even the drive that took him across midfield was a struggle. Everything with the offense in the first half the last 2 weeks, and in my article last night after the game, I said it feels like the 49ers offense in the first half the last 2 weeks feels like you're looking up a hill in the rain, a muddy hill, and you start to try to walk up it. And every time you get about halfway up there, you slip and you start sliding back down. And that's what the offense does look like. And I'd like to say that it's one thing or another, and I know that the thing that everybody wants to point to is that it's Garoppolo's fault, and he definitely plays a hand in it. But there's more to it than just Jimmy Garoppolo that's causing the offense to struggle.
Yeah, well, I just saw in the same game a quarterback with a third string left tackle, a makeshift offensive line, just do some magical things. So I think that the quarterback does play a big difference in, what the offense can actually do. Because if Aaron Rodgers had the type of talent that Jimmy had, I think that this offense looks way better than what Jimmy, including with all the flaws that you're seeing.
Well, yeah, but nobody on this is saying that Jimmy Garoppolo is Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, he'd be better.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that I think the flaws of this team and offense get exasperated because of the limitations of Jimmy. That's what my point is. Because
there's a valid point. I just think that when you're talking about last night, when Rodgers, again, they got no pressure on him.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get in. They didn't get it around him. He threw the ball. He averaged, I think, 2.39 seconds per release. That's pretty darn good. It was second best in the league this week so far. I don't know about what's going on tonight. Garoppolo's at 2.64, so it's not like he was really holding the ball all that long. He's just getting pressured, and they're go watch. Just what's his name? The right guard, Daniel Brunskill, just gets walked into the quarterback over and over again. I understand the issue. Some of those issues aren't going to be cleared up by changing the quarterback.
Sure.
I understand where the thought with Trey Lance is that he's going to be able to escape the pocket and run the ball. I don't think that that's something that's going to allow maybe some things to be extended here and there, but it's not something that overall is going to, at least I don't think that they're going to be that much better if he's having to run around just because of his running around stuff. He's going to have to build.
Don't you think that Trey will immediately help this running game get back on track?
It's hard to say because the times that he's been on the field, they haven't, except for last night with the one run around the edge, they haven't run the ball well when he's only been on the field for 4 plays. So it's hard to really say. Right. You'd like to say that he's going to be able to affect the defense like a Jalen Hurts or something like that, like we saw last week. But I don't know how much that's the 49ers offensive identity and how much they actually have the playmakers to be able to stretch the defense out the way that the Eagles do. Because quite frankly, Miles Sanders is a better running back than anybody the 49ers have on their team right now.
Well, let's get into it because we talked a lot about, the issues that the 49ers are having, getting pushed around at the offensive line. I think the defense was out of position quite a bit, switching between man-to-man and, cover zone and all these kinds of things. A lot of this seems like preparation to me, Jack. A lot of this seems like schematic things where people aren't necessarily ready. You even see a guy like Fred Warner who, isn't playing like the best middle linebacker in the game. Do the 49ers have a coaching problem early in the season right now? Oh, I thought Jack was just sitting there. I think he got frozen a little bit. While we wait for him to get back, let me check some of these comments. It seems like you guys are mostly just having a conversation amongst each other. Harold Murillo. Kyle is holding the team back. Yeah, I mean, look, I don't know what exactly Kyle can do, but I definitely think that he does have a lot of blame to be, on it. And Jack, you're back. So
Sorry.
you're fine. Let's hear what you have to say about whether or not this team has a coaching problem.
Yeah, I think the coaching staff definitely deserves some of the blame that's going on here. On the defensive side of the ball, again, you don't make an adjustment and you allow, at least from what I could see, you're basically allowing the Packers to dictate what Nick Bosa does by just chipping him with one guy. That's just wild to me. On the offensive side of the ball, for the most part, I was okay with what Shanahan was doing. I didn't like the fourth down call. That's really the only one that I was upset with him on. There was a couple of plays, that he's trying to figure out what to do on the offensive side. And with the run game yesterday, they had 4 running backs up for the game and only one of them played. I didn't really understand that one a whole lot. They ran the ball 20 times. You give 10 carries to Trey Sermon, and you're running, Debo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, all these wide receivers all over the field. Juszczyk became the best. He had 5 carries and everybody else had 1.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like, I know we always kind of compare to 2019, but in 2019, it seemed like they made a concerted effort with how many runs they were going to attempt per game. There was like a number that they always used to talk about. I forgot what that number was, but it seems like Kyle has been shying away from the run this season. And maybe part of that is, like you said, this offensive line isn't performing the way that they need to be. But it seemed like even in 2019, even if the running game wasn't going off, they would still attempt it. And then in the fourth quarter, it would really pay dividends. Tell me a little bit about why you think that's not the case this year.
Well, I think there's last night they're down 17-0. So that plays a role into it. Against Philadelphia, they ran the ball quite a bit. I think they might have ran the ball 50-50. But, part of it is just, last night's game is, in particular, you're down 17-0. You're going to have to throw the ball more than you want to. And they just aren't running. They're just not running the ball very well. And I think last night you saw Shanahan lose some confidence or some more confidence in Trey Sermon. It was in the second quarter, I think it was. And the Pointers were kind of backed up, and they threw Garoppolo hits Sermon in the hands, and he drops the throw. And then after that, he was pretty much out of the game for quite a while. Right. So I just think he's not comfortable with who they have at running back, and it's a real big problem for the 49ers because the quarterback, this offense needs the run game to go in order to be successful because the play action scheme is where Shanahan's whole MO is built off of the run game and the play action game off of that. His offense is very blah when it comes to pass back, drop back passing.
Right. Yeah, and I mean, what's the solution? Like, I don't like this defensive line that the Green Bay has isn't a top 10 defensive line, and they still were able to, get penetration and affect this offensive line. I don't know. This offensive line looked really good against Detroit. They got beat up against Philly, and, they got beat up, I would say, against Green Bay. Like I said, I think what's masking it is a lot of the game was close at the end, and clearly, they played in spurts, I guess, well enough to where the 49ers could at least compete in this game. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. It seems like, and maybe that's like kind of, negating everything that I just said about the adjustments and everything. But we touched on Kyle. Let's touch on DeMeco. I know you did a little bit earlier, but I think we were all praising him in the Eagles game for making those, adjustments and all those types of things. But It looks like maybe a problem for him is in-game adjustments. He seems like he does well with reading the tape and making adjustments. However, the in-game adjustment seems to be something that he's not picking up on very quickly. Are you seeing that same thing?
Yeah, I would say I would agree with that. I don't think we're seeing a whole lot of change up from them. Every once in a while, he'll make a, the biggest change up that we saw from him was in week 2 when they started using the kind of an odd front with the guy over the center because that helped with the run defense. But beyond that, we're not really seeing a whole lot. They pretty much line up and play, and it's pretty simple to see what's coming. You can sit up there and you can see them in third down situations, 4 guys across the board, man coverage, single high. That's what they do, and that's what they've done pretty much all year long. So I don't think we're seeing very much adjustments out of them at all. And it's just a matter of the players making plays. That's the only time that they make any stops. And that's obviously the players have to make plays, but the coach sometimes has to put them in the right positions to do that too. It goes both ways,
sure. For sure. Yeah, I mean, I wonder what that film room is going to be like, this week, because there was a lot of blown coverages on defense for sure. Speaking of blown coverages, all right, so we've been really high on Demo Lenoir till this game, right? So this was really going to be the test because obviously they're playing one of the best receivers in the game matched up with one of the best quarterbacks in the game. It didn't look pretty. Look, Josh Norman went out early in the game. From what the injuries that they said, lung bruises and internal bleeding, and he's talking about coming. I thought the season was over when they started talking about what his injuries were. I'm like, you're gonna play with lung bruises and internal bleeding? I think that's important in a game when you're running and sprinting and stuff like that. Your lungs are kind of important. But Lenoir, was getting beaten. Dante Johnson was getting beaten. My man Mosley even was getting exposed, So now with, Norman up in the air as far as his availability, Ambry Thomas is 2 weeks back-to-back being, a healthy scratch. What are we doing at cornerback, man? Is it time to get Uncle Sherm on the phone, or are there changes that just need to be made in scheme? Even K'Wan Williams was getting beaten up. I mean, it wasn't looking good for the corners at all, man. What's your analysis of this cornerback room and solutions if you do have any?
I mean, we saw this coming back in June.
No, I had faith. I thought this was not going to happen.
I know that, and I did too. But I mean, I'm talking about the injuries. We saw the injuries coming back in June. The rookies, Lenoir's been okay. He's been all right. He's going to. I think Deommodore Lenoir is going to be probably he might even be your starting nickelback, this week against Seattle because K'Wan Williams is out for a while, and he's one of the guys that's in there. It's either going to be him or it all depends. They said Josh Norman might be able to play on Sunday despite everything that he went through, and if he can start, then that helps the defense out quite a bit. Yeah, at cornerback they need to get Norman and hope that Norman comes back. If it's not Norman, then it's Lenoir and
Mosley.
And then Mosley, and if that's the case, they might not even do that because last night what happened was they put Dante Johnson in there instead. When Josh Norman first went down, it was Dante Johnson that replaced him, not Deommodore Lenoir. The only reason Lenoir went into the game is because Dante Johnson got injured.
Right.
And then he went into the game, and then I know they kind of rotated him in here and there because Johnson was, I think, probably the guy playing in the slot. I'd have to go back and watch it to make sure, but I think that's what was going on last night. And yeah, it's an issue at corner as well. They look at the last play of the game from the Packers. It's that they got to get past the 35-yard line to have a good shot at a field goal, and Deommodore Lenoir's playing at the 30. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Make them. You got to play up. I don't understand it. The 49ers. Here's the thing: is that it's not like the 49ers defense has shown that they can play soft zone coverage and still stop a team. They haven't done it all year. They gave up 16 points at the end of the game to
Detroit.
to Detroit. They let Detroit drive it down to the 24-yard line before they finally finished that game off, and that only came when they kind of stiffened up and stopped playing so loose. And last night you're up by 2 points or 1 point, excuse me, and you know that they got to get to about the 40, 35, and you're playing such soft coverage that the guy can just run and sit down in a zone with there was Lenoir's 5 yards behind him, and there's a 49er 5 yards in front of him. I mean, he just sits there, catches it, and falls down. It's just I don't know what they're going to do at corner. I mean, we know what the issues are there. There were issues going into the season as far as the injuries, and Ambry Thomas just hasn't stepped up like you and I were hoping he would. Man,
that's been my worst take. Is Ambry Thomas is going to be a superstar this season, or like at least be a productive player? I apologize for everybody that was getting excited about my Ambry Thomas takes. He is not performing, but hey, he's young. Hopefully next season, right? But yeah, I mean, I don't see a simple solution. Like, if it was a scheme thing, and then make some adjustments and all this kind of stuff, but these guys are getting beat, right? And there was only one like great receiver that they were playing up against, but in like the first series, MVS goes up against K1 and just outruns him. Like it was nothing. It was just out athletic them. And if it's going to be an issue where these receivers are just more athletic and more talented, and these corners aren't going to be aggressive and stop them, what's going to happen when they're playing two good receivers, just like they're going to do against Seattle, or a receiver like DeAndre Hopkins, whose hands are like, catcher's mitts. And, we had this question, is this cornerback room going to be a liability? And we were hedging like, no, it's not. And I think part of the issue is they're being forced to cover, and they weren't necessarily, we didn't think that they would have to for as long as they are, because we thought the defensive line was going to do their job. And like you've always mentioned, Jack, this defense made a concerted effort to choose that the heart of this defense was going to be the defensive line. And if they're not playing well, like we're saying that they're not, it really exposes the other levels of this defense. And we're seeing that, there's a lot of question marks there, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I think last night you got to give it up to Aaron Rodgers. I mean, he put some balls on people that were those were top level throws, and that plays into it as well. I just if the 40, it all comes down to what happens here on Sunday against Seattle, and what happens week after. If they go into the bye 2-3, it's going to be I think a lot of changes, because, and I'm kind of changing the topic, but I think if they go into the bye at 2-3, at that point I don't see why you just don't go make. Yeah, if they're 2-3, they're not going to be a they're out. They're going to be out of the NFC West race, and they might be out of the playoff race at that point, just because of the way the NFC West is looking in terms of the top two teams are going to be eating up positions. That's for sure. I think.
I agree, and I'll get you out on this one, man. All-Pro Fred Warner gets broken off this offseason, and he hasn't really been out there, dominating. He had a decent game against the Eagles, non-existent against Detroit, and made, a very, very bad play at the end of the game that really cost, the 49ers winning that game. What are the issues that you're seeing with Fred Warner as far as why he isn't as dominant as, we thought he was going to be?
I think that part of it is the guys in the middle of the defensive line aren't as good as what they had last year. That's one. And so the run defense, they're just getting blown off the ball, and that impacts the ability of those linebackers to flow to the ball. Part of it is he doesn't have Dre Greenlaw next to him, and that's, say what you want about Greenlaw, but I know Alshire played good in his place, but Dre Greenlaw is still a better player than Azeez Al-Shaair. That's why he was the starter to start the season off. And the only reason he's out is because of injury. I think all those things are kind of playing into it.
I mean, Dre Greenlaw's worth and value for this team, I think, is rising with every game that he's injured, sitting on there. He's probably had this big smile on his face, as far as, obviously he's hurt. He's upset that the team's not playing well, but as far as his future and his contract negotiations. I mean, to see how this defense is playing with him and how this defense is playing without him, I think he's going to have some chips to bargain with as far as when it comes time for the re-up on his contract, right? Clearly, it seems like Fred Warner is more comfortable with him and him beside him. Even not that Alshire is doing anything wrong, but it's just that Fred isn't all pro Fred. He's not looking like the best middle linebacker in the game at this point.
No, he's not, and he's definitely not. And I'm not sure what it is. I'm just pointing to some of the different areas that I think that it could be. He had again, we talked about the whole, where the defensive backs are playing too deep. At the same time, there's no reason for your linebackers to be allowing balls over the top.
Right.
At all. They should be dropping, and those guys should be forcing everything. They should be getting deep. You have your corners maybe a little bit more of a tighter coverage on the outside. You're under your linebackers in more of a drop situation. They should be buzzing backwards because as long as they keep everything in front of you in that situation, you're okay. Green Bay didn't have any timeouts, so especially that first down play, you've got to get depth on that drop. He doesn't get it deep enough, and the ball goes right over top of his hand for a big gain, 25 yards.
So, Jack, tell me your honest analysis right now. Are you worried about the 49ers?
Yeah, definitely. You should be. I understand that they lost to a very good team, but they're going to be playing a team on Sunday that could make them pay. I mean, I think the Seahawks are a decent team. They're 1-2, but they lost to two good teams. The Tennessee Titans are whatever, forget about their record. They're a decent team in the NFL, and the Minnesota Vikings are as well. That's who they've lost to. And the 49ers haven't had to play. This will be the first. They've played two teams that are kind of on the bottom side. They played one at the top, and this will be kind of their first against, maybe a team that's about their same level, and their injuries and lack of offense early in games. If that continues, this week's going to, I think, be tough.
Let's leave it on a positive note. Were there any bright spots that you saw in this game?
Of course there were. The 49ers came back from down. I mean, they came back. They were down 17-0. They came back and took the lead 28-27. The one thing that doesn't get talked about enough is the backwards pass by Garoppolo. And I understand the defense did a good job, and that was 3 points right there. And I know that Garoppolo kind of gets bailed out because he drives them down the field and puts them up. But that was the play that lost them the game, on top of, along with the drive at the end of the game. But the positive is that they were in the game despite being down 17-0 against a team that like we said was in the last two NFC Championship games. They're 2-1. They're a top 10, I think, offense right now in terms of points scored. They're they're a top quarter of the league. Actually, they're 8th in the league in points scored. They just need to get it together. If they can get it together on offense and get any semblance of a running game going, I think the offense turns the corner and will be helping the defense out. I just think we're in for some shootouts, and so buckle up, and that's right.
I don't think there's going to be any non-anxiety type games for 49er fans. They're going to be close games, I think, throughout the season, and it's going to be a roller coaster ride for sure. Two things that I saw that really were bright spots for me. One, Brandon Ayuk finally got the ball, right? He got yes. Passes thrown to him. He made catches, got a touchdown. That was great. Number two, George Kittle finally looked like the beast that he is, right? They let that man eat, and he went out there and performed. So those were two things. It wasn't just the Debo show, which he still had a decent game, but I like that they spread the ball around. I like that they got their weapons involved. Juszczyk had a great game. So those are, I think, the bright spots that I saw, Jack.
Yeah, no, and I agree with you. You definitely have to say that those were bright spots because getting Ayuk involved in the game is something they hadn't done up until this point. He's probably their best pure wide receiver. If not, he's right there in the mix with with Debo and so on.
Mhm.
So I don't think you can really that's a positive. They did get some big plays out of Kittle. They just need to get him involved more often, and hopefully Elijah Mitchell comes back and he can provide a little bit of a spark for the running game this week against Seattle.
And Jeff Wilson Jr., man, we should put a countdown to when Jeff Wilson Jr. would get back into the lineup. Jack,
Definitely.
I appreciate the time. We had some technical difficulties on the pregame show, but we were able to get, the postgame, or at least this show, going. I know you are a little bit of a time crunch, but anything you want to plug while we have the people watching?
For right now, as far as my channel, I have Niner Chatter tomorrow night. So don't worry, I'll agree with you or disagree with you, but I'll be nice. And that's kind of a little bit of a joke towards what Runa was saying earlier. But and that's fine. And so we'll do Niner Chatter on Tuesday night around 6, and then for sure Hammer and Nail show will be on Thursday night at 6:30. And that one should be fun, given the way that Jesse and I view this game and the way it went down. Mm-hmm. And then you and I will be back on Sunday. And somewhere in between there, I'll probably do a film breakdown by myself, along with one with Grant over on his channel.
Sounds great. Only thing I'm plugging all week is the Sound Off show with the Faithful. That's going to be every Sunday after the game. We had a call from Austria, Jack.
Nice.
That came in. He was so frustrated with the game. He was just walking around his streets at like 3-4 in the morning in Austria because he couldn't go to sleep. So he called in and got some stuff off his chest so he could get some sleep before work. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Please like, subscribe, comment on these videos. It really helps out with the algorithm. We appreciate you guys in the comments. With staying active. We're gonna keep putting out this content. So guys, put the last game in the rearview mirror. Now we got to focus on next week. We're still 2-1, still in a great position. Make tweaks, get better, and be safe. We'll see you guys later. Have a great night.